for the UNX News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the UNX News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to UNX News. We're here every Friday evening, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you for joining me this evening. I do want to mention a couple of items before we get going with our show tonight. First up, get a hold of the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network 2024 calendar that is available right now on unxnetwork.com, and it does go through the end of January 2025. We were a little late getting that out this year, so we went, so you'll get a full year. So check that out. Also, we have XCon coming up, and the registrations are open. It's October 11th through the 13th. It's now ready to go at unxnetwork.com, and you can see all about it, all of our speakers, our events. The venue in Springfield, Missouri is fantastic. You're going to love it. So mark your calendar and get your super, super early bird registration in for the least expensive price on that. Wow. We have got a fantastic guest this evening. And how this came about, she actually heard me on Coast to Coast AM, and she was interested, and she contacted me because she also has synesthesia and more. And she's been tested for this. She's also an author. She's written a couple of books, and we're going to talk all about that this evening. So hang on to your hats, folks. This is going to be a good one. Welcome to the program, Maureen.
Hello. Nice to see you, Margie. Hello, everyone.
Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. We have, something in common. But
Yes,
of course,
we
I'll
do.
bet it's a little bit different for everybody. Take us back to the beginning. When did you find out that you had synesthesia?
I stumbled on a book about it after living about 23 years of my life in ignorance of it. I mean, I knew something was going on with me, but I didn't have a word for it. And I found Dr. Richard Cytowick's book, The Man Who Tasted Shapes. And it was all about this interesting brain trait that we both have called synesthesia.
Okay. Well, for our audience that some people may not know what that means, what does that mean exactly?
It is bonus senses. So you'll read a lot of things about synesthesia that say, oh, it's crossed wiring or mixed up senses. But in fact, I think you'll agree with me, Margie. All we synesthetes have the traditional sensory response. If I'm looking at a number 5 on the front page of a newspaper, I know it's black ink on a beige background. However, the bonus part is I get a blue aura around it, a navy blue aura. Or if I'm listening to music, I'll see beautiful waves of color, which I think you experience as well. So synesthetes are just like everyone else, except we're getting this layer on top of things.
A little extra dimension to it.
Yes.
Now, do you see this with your eyes normally, or do you have to, like I do? I have to change my level of consciousness. I have to go into a little slight trance state in order to see
That's
these
so
things.
cool. Yeah, no, mine's involuntary, so it just happens. However, when I meditate, it's stronger when I'm
I
in that
see.
state. So that's very interesting. You should say that.
Interesting indeed. Yes. I think um, I think what's probably happening is a level of consciousness. So I have not read your book. I don't know what your opinion is on that. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think
Yes.
consciousness has to do with this?
Well, I think that synesthesia is a bit of an altered state.
Okay. That's, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That would be an altered state of consciousness.
Yes.
Uh, so you are in that state basically all the time then.
Apparently. But I don't bump into things and I'm getting around okay.
Okay. Now, what what other things or talents or abilities might someone have who has synesthesia that beyond seeing music?
That's really the most important question of all. Since there seems to be a creative cluster among synesthetes where, you've got everyone from Billie Eilish to LL Cool J, Billy Joel, Itzhak Perlman, even Marilyn Monroe are all synesthetes. So it seems to lay the basis for a very creative person.
So, okay, it seems that perhaps people who are right-brained or more right-brained might have a tendency towards synesthesia.
Oh, that's true because there are a lot of left-handers among synesthetes,
Oh,
including
really?
myself. Yes.
Interesting. Oh boy, I can see I've got a million questions for you.
Oh, I'm glad you do.
Um, now you have your first book
Hmm.
is this one. Um,
Yes, first with a major publisher.
yeah. What is this about?
This is an astonishing story. Not because I wrote it, whether I wrote it or not. Um, a gentleman out in Tacoma was a real party guy. Wouldn't hurt a fly, great person, but he was out every night. And one night he was leaving a karaoke bar, and two men jumped him and beat him very badly.
Mhm.
He woke a mathematical genius.
That's incredible. That is just incredible. You do hear about things like this where somebody has an accident, has a brain injury, and something happens, like they become psychic all of a sudden, something like that. But in this case, he became a mathematical genius, and he had no interest in that subject beforehand.
None at all. He barely made it through algebra. It was a complete personality change.
Wow. That's so how did that change his life?
Um, he he had a lot of trauma and isolated himself for a long time.
Mm.
But now he's out and about and married with children and doing a lot of interesting things.
Well, that's good. That's good that, but did he do anything with his new ability?
Yes, he's theorizing a lot of math and physics.
Is he working with anybody else on this?
Yes, he has some colleagues, some physicists he consults with.
I see. I see. Wow. Um, it kind of reminds me of that movie that was made about that math genius, the young kid. Yeah, it seems that we're both plagued with coughing this evening. So,
I
uh,
apologize to your lovely audience
oh,
and to you. I was fine until I started talking.
yeah,
I apologize.
you'll be okay. It'll pass. I'm having the same problem. Oh,
I'm going to
all of
have
a
a
sudden
little
this
bit
evening.
of soda.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
go right ahead. Um, and I'll just mention here real quick. I discovered synesthesia when I was 17, and I was playing in an orchestra. I was playing the bass, and from my position where I was first chair, I could see the entire orchestra and the audience. And about three-quarters of the way through, all of a sudden, I was also standing, my consciousness was standing to the right of me while I'm still playing the bass, but I'm watching these streams of color come out from the
Wow.
instruments and go into the audience. And I could actually see the vibration of each note inside these streams of color, and each note was a different color, but also a different width. Like if the violin was playing, it was a real thin line, like a little finger, but if it was the bass, it was maybe like 3 inches wide.
Wow.
And
That's
yeah,
sounds like synesthesia.
that
Yeah,
was, and
every stimulus
yeah.
has its own form and color.
Okay, so what have you learned about color in music since you discovered you have synesthesia?
Well, I also see color, but mine is depending on what musical instrument is playing. And a lot of creative artists in the music business experience synesthesia, like Billy Joel,
Mhm.
Chris Martin of Coldplay, Mary J. Blige, and some of the other people I already mentioned, Alanis Morissette.
That's really I did not know that all of these people had synesthesia. That's amazing. So in your everyday life, well, you mentioned if you look at a newspaper, you see a blue glow around black ink.
Hmm.
What else might you see throughout the day?
Um, my months also have color. People's voices have color. So it's sort of an overlay of everything.
Oh my goodness. So if somebody's talking and you hear their voice, you see color coming out of their mouths or around them. Is that how that works? Oh, muted. Okay.
Around them, excuse me.
It's around them. Okay. So I- I'm I'm I suspect that it's in their energy field then, around their body that you see the color in the energy field, which makes
I
sense.
believe that's what it is. It's kind of
Yeah.
hyperdimensional, right? And it's funny,
Yeah.
Margie, because when I was a kid, I used to think you could reach out and touch and hold these things in the air, but
Oh.
they're not, you can't reach them. So where is that space?
Yeah, where is that? Is it interdimensional? Are we looking at something that's in fifth dimension and while we're in third dimension and we're seeing it, and just not everybody sees that?
I think you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. And there's a chapter in my new book, Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, where I say synesthesia is a place because of this dimensionality. It's like virtual reality
Oh.
without the goggles. Would you say?
Oh, I like that analogy. That is great. That's something that people can understand.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Um, well, since you brought up the book, why don't you tell us a little bit about this? What is it all about?
Well, it's about new sensory research. So now they know that we can see light at the level of a single photon. We can smell 1 trillion things. We can hear sounds with diameters. The amplitudes are smaller than the diameter of an atom. We are just exquisite. We are all of us, not just me. We are the finest technology on the planet. We can beat dogs and laboratory rats in some testing. Um, uh, there's no machine that can match us, which is significant because this week Neuralink went into a human subject, or they announced it.
Yeah.
I don't think we need it. I can see the therapeutic end, but we are the technology.
I think you're so right that people don't realize their their full potential. their full capacity, and maybe they and they do depress that, or somebody else tells them when they're young, no, you don't want to mess with that because that's woo woo. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. Did you have any trouble growing up with your parents or teachers or anybody telling you not to talk about it or not to see things?
Um, my my mom tried to help me. She thought maybe there were colors in the classroom that were influencing my memory, but the colors in the classroom didn't match the colors on my letters or my numbers or my music. So I kind of voluntarily stopped talking about it.
I see.
No one really forced me.
Yeah, but you soon realized that not everybody could see what you saw. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's I
Was it like
understand.
that for you? Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to me too. Yeah.
And did you self regulate?
No.
Like, no? Good
Nope.
for you.
I kept going with it and nothing could stop me.
Good.
And yeah, so my family was open-minded. Yeah, and tried to help me where they could. But is this a we're yeah, I want to talk about tetrachromacy. Is that
Oh, you're one of the few who
correct?
got it on the first try.
Okay. What is
Yes.
that?
So, I have a mutation in my eyes for the fourth cone class for color perception, which means most people have three types of cones on their retinas. I have four, and it makes me see exponentially more color. So I can see up to 100 million colors.
Wow.
And I had my DNA tested, and it's one thing to have the DNA, but then they test the functionality.
Okay. So obviously not everybody has that. Do they have any idea how many people might have that fourth cone in their eyes?
It may be as many as 12% of women. You need two X chromosomes.
Oh, so men wouldn't have this fourth cone in their
No,
eyes.
no.
Okay. So I know you were part of a special test for that. Is that test going to be available to the public?
Yes. In fact, I was one of three guinea pigs to help develop the test. So we're
Oh,
hoping it will be widely available soon through Arizona State University. And there's a Nobel Prize winner working on this. So we have some really great people.
oh, that's awesome. That really, really is awesome. Uh, Let me ask you this. Do you also hear color?
No, well, if I listen to a cello playing, for example, it's always a wavy mocha form, consistently the same form, consistently the same color. But
Okay.
it doesn't work in the other direction for me.
So, like if you look at a flower that's a certain color, you don't
It
hear
does.
a tone?
No,
Yeah, okay.
no. Does it
Okay.
work like that for you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
It
cool.
only if I turn it on.
Yeah.
If yeah, if I really what it is going into fifth dimension to see it
I
or
love that
hear it.
you say that because it has a sense of dimension. And
Yeah.
I think the biophysicists will figure it out eventually.
I think they're making some really good advancements in physics.
Yes.
I have a good friend of mine who's a physicist, and wow, it's just amazing
What a
what they
time
can
to be
do.
alive in general, right, Margie?
Oh
I
gosh.
mean, everything's
Yes.
moving so fast is the only problem.
It might be moving a little too fast for some people.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially with the brain chips. Oh my gosh.
that really
Yeah.
concerns me.
Yeah.
I think we need to develop ourselves more fully. before we take that leap, if we ever take it. But
Yeah.
technology always outpaces ethics, it seems.
There you go. I
So,
have to agree with you on that.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about what this sort of thing looks like. So I'm going to show some pictures. I want to ask you if what you see is similar to any of this.
Yes, like I was talking about the waveform with cello or other instruments,
Okay.
but mine's a solid color.
It's a solid
It's
color.
it's like
Okay.
mocha and really shiny.
Okay. Okay.
That's also something I see. I see a lot of things like this when I am trying to fall asleep at night.
Oh, just in the room?
No, in my mind's
Oh,
eye.
in your mind's eye. Okay. Okay. Um, do you see the vibration or the waveform?
I don't see
Yeah.
it vibrating really, but I see it kind of undulating, kind of moving and changing shape a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So you would not see this sort of thing along
A
with
little
the color.
bit,
Oh, yeah?
a little bit,
Okay.
but not as vibrational, but some shapes that are more solid than that.
Have you ever tried to draw what you see?
Yes, yes, I would like to do more of that. I've done my whole alphabet in the colors that I see them in.
Oh. Oh, interesting. So does each letter have a different color?
Yes, and they're consistent throughout your life. So my A is yellow, my B is brown, my C is light blue, and so
Okay.
forth. Yeah,
And
and
that
that I like to call that the gateway drug to synesthesia as
Oh,
a joke because everybody who has these more interesting forms of synesthesia, like you, the colored letter, the colored music and stuff, tend to start as children with the colorful letters and numbers.
oh. Okay. Okay. That's that explains a lot. This is absolutely fascinating this evening.
Oh, I'm
Um,
so happy to have someone to talk with it about. We don't always meet each other.
well, that's a good question. How many other synestheses or
Synesthetes.
synesthetes? Okay. I have to get that right. Do you know?
I probably know 100, but that's because I've been very active in recent years.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but they're mostly online people, and I don't get to talk to them the way I have you on the phone and here. So it's really lovely.
But they're out there.
They're
That
out there.
that's good to know.
4% of people are believed to be synesthetes.
4%. And that includes men?
Yes, that
Okay.
synesthesia can be women or men. And what's interesting is that gentleman whose book I told you unlocked synesthesia for me, Dr. Richard Cytowic, the man who tasted shapes, was the book. He told me he believes all people are synesthetes, but
Really?
4% of people get a conscious bleed and can talk about the clockworks that are happening in the mind. But behind the scenes, other people, their minds are making those connections. It's just not rising to conscious awareness. So he believes that's how it
Oh.
works.
Oh, wow.
I'm loving everyone's comments, and I liked
Yeah.
Maria's there. Great time to be alive. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody in chat. We like your comments, so keep them coming.
Thank
We are
you.
going to take a short break here, and when we come back, we'll talk more with Maureen Seaberg. This is Margie Kay
Thank
with
you.
Unix News. Don't go away. Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com.
Are we alone in the universe? The most important question facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
And we're back. This is UNX News on the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network, and I'm your host, Margie K. I am going to try to show you this presentation right now. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Okay. Tell us all about that, Maureen.
So that was from the show Heroes, in which a character, everyone had a superpower on that show. And that particular character was able to see colorful music. And whenever she heard a sound like a siren going by, she would see colors. And then she finally meets that gentleman, and he can see it too. So they kind of put their heads together in the storyline. But I thought that was a pretty true representation. How did you feel about it? Because I know you have colors for your music.
Um, yeah, what I see is similar to that, but it comes out in straight streams of color. It
Mm,
doesn't it's not wavy like that or go up in the air. It just goes
okay.
but it goes out directly to people. That's the thing. It doesn't go to nothing or
It
to an
goes to
empty
people.
space. If there's people there, it goes directly to the people. It's as if they're receiving healing from this color.
Wow.
I know that's what it is. And it just automatically knows where to go. Let's put it like that. The note knows where to go.
Isn't that beautiful?
Person, yeah.
So you're kind of taking it to another level, really, in terms of its meaning, right?
Yeah, I just think, of course, we're all different, so we would each have a little bit different experience with
Yes,
it.
there is no Rosetta Stone for synesthesia. There are as many varieties of it as there are people who have it.
Let's talk about some of the varieties that there might be, if you wouldn't mind sharing a few of those with us.
Yeah, I've heard a few really interesting ones. So, the great neuroscientist David Eagleman, who studies synesthesia, told me he had a patient who was a South Indian gentleman, and he saw the caste system. So, like untouchables or Brahmins
Uh-huh.
and everyone in between. He saw it splayed out all around him in space, the categories. And Brahman wasn't higher than an untouchable. It was
Oh.
all mixed up.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, in this kind of hyperspace around him. So imagine that. And so there's like culturally informed synesthesia too, depending on where you're from and what what you might think about.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, we've got a couple of questions in the chat, so I'm gonna bring these up. James says, "Does this branch out to painting and watercolor painting and pastels?"
Yes, it does. A lot of painters experience synesthesia. And as I said earlier, there's a creative cluster, but it's not just musicians, it's also artists in other mediums.
Okay. Kevin says, "Does this message have a color? Is it similar to remote viewing in a non-visual way?"
It's so interesting you should say that. Your message has many colors, Kevin. All the letters have their own colors. And I'm told that the best remote viewers are all synesthetes,
Uh, okay, that makes sense.
which
Uh,
Margie seems to represent.
yeah, yeah. James says when he plays the mountain dulcimer, he sees the sounds as he plays, so he's a
Oh, you're a synesthete
synesthete.
too.
Yeah.
How beautiful. I'd love to hear that music sometime.
Yeah, I would too. I've known James for a long, long time, and I didn't know he played the mountain dulcimer.
Wow. Wow.
This
Excuse me
is a
while I
new
sip
one.
this.
Okay. Oh, yes, Big Red Pig reminds everybody to please subscribe and, like this, channel.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, The notes have different waveforms. Do the notes have different waveforms?
Yes, I think so. Different colors, different forms.
Frugal Rock says, "Good evening. I have a painting of Hunter S. Thompson done by an artist named Dylan James who has synesthesia. This is
Oh,
a
isn't
great
that
topic."
something? I'd
I
love to
didn't know
see
that.
that. The gonzo journalist himself, right?
I'm going to have to check that out too. Okay. Wow. Well, thanks everybody for your questions and comments. If you have any more questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We would appreciate it. We're talking tonight with Maureen Seaberg. Maureen, what are some of the other things that you've done that we didn't mention in the beginning? You're a writer and you've written for several publications, correct?
Yes, I was a newspaper writer for about 20 years. So
Wow.
I finished up as a stringer at the New York Times, mostly covering crime. And
Oh,
and then I decided I wanted to write books, which was a lifelong dream. So I took my meager savings and I gave myself a year and I said, let me see if I can make a go of this. And I have been able to support myself with books. So I'm very grateful.
so
Um,
you have just the two books right now?
I
Okay.
have two others as well. They were
Oh,
smaller, but those are my two main titles that you pointed out.
okay.
And Struck by Genius has just been optioned for film again.
Oh,
It's been optioned many times, and no one has yet brought it to the screen, but we're very hopeful this time.
what is that about?
So that is the gentleman who was mugged and became a mathematical savant.
That one. Okay.
Yeah, which
There
is,
we go.
of course, very dramatic, right?
Oh gosh,
And
yes.
that's his actual silhouette. That's what he looks like now.
Really?
But when he was a party guy, he had really long hair and a mullet, and he's totally different. He's a complete geek now. And I say that with love, and he would say that about himself too.
So it changed his personality?
Completely. But you know what the odd thing about it is? He said to me he wishes he had amnesia because the two people he has been in his life are
Oh.
diametrically opposed, and he can remember the old Jason.
Oh.
And it's a little
Yeah.
unsettling for him, you know?
Oh, I'll bet it would be.
So he almost
Goodness.
wishes he had a clean break to start as this math fellow. But he's been two
Well,
people in this lifetime.
yeah. How old is he now?
I believe he's 50, early 50s.
Oh, well, he's got plenty of time
He does.
to get something big accomplished, a
Yes,
lot
yes,
accomplished.
yes.
Right. Maureen, do you ever wish you didn't have synesthesia?
Um, there were times before there was such interest in it. People seem really interested in it now. Just
Mhm.
like everything is opening up in our world, right? Ufology, the
Yes.
quote unquote paranormal that I don't think is paranormal. I just think it's normal. But
Yes.
now you can talk about it. But before you could really talk about synesthesia, yeah, I might have wished that a couple of times because it sounds so odd when you bring it up, and it's it was uncomfortable sometimes. So I tried not to talk about it.
Mhm.
But now it's safe, you know?
When you're conversing with someone or talking to someone or just walking along the street, do you see colors around people?
Mhm.
And if so, does that give you an idea of what their personality is, what type of person they are?
A little bit. I think it's well, aura seeing is now defined as a synesthesia as well. And I think the auras I have seen tell me do give me insight. to the person, at least at that moment in time, where they're at, you know?
Mhm.
And I've seen two magnificent rainbow auras in my lifetime. One was on a Tibetan monk, and the other was on a doctor that I was sitting at a conference table across from him as a journalist interviewing him. And he had just this complete halo, a rainbow halo. And I didn't ask him about it. I was a little shy about that. But I asked a public relations person from the hospital about it afterwards. And she said, "Oh, you could see it?" And I said, Yeah. And there were other people at the table too. She said, "You didn't see it around them." And I said, "No." She said, "You picked the one shaman at the table
Uh-huh.
because he works as one of those doctors without borders
Mhm.
and is recognized as a shaman in Africa." But it was so bright, you couldn't
Oh,
miss it.
when I see that, it's always someone who has worked on their chakras and has cleared out their energy field, and it's rare to see it.
Yeah,
To
I've
see
only
someone who's
seen
very, very balanced.
two in my lifetime.
Yeah. I would say I've probably seen 2 or 3 in my whole lifetime. Do you see that around people when you're on Zoom or doing a show like this? Do you see anything around me?
It's harder
Is that
it's
is it?
harder to see, but the tone of your voice is affecting me. And it's this beautiful, like, just a cornflower blue. You have a lovely color to your voice.
Oh, well,
But
that's
your
good to know.
aura, I can't see from the
Yes.
screen.
Okay, so it needs to be in person
Yes,
to
for
see
me
you.
anyway. I don't know how other people work.
Okay. Okay. Gosh. Um, Here's a question. Does it help you read a person's aura? Has it been super useful in life situations?
Yes, you synesthetes tend to be able to see auras. And I think it has warned me a couple of times.
Mhm.
When I get the reds, when I get a really fiery red, I'm a
Yeah.
little cautious.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
that I don't like red, but red around a person is a stoplight for me.
Mhm. Yeah, red is a warning color anyway. We use it for stop and
Isn't
warning.
it funny how everyone seems to agree?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And it's
And
at the societal level.
yes, so somebody along the way figured that out and said red means stop and no.
And you know
Uh,
what else, Margie? Isn't it funny how we all agree that if you're sad, you feel blue? And
mm,
if you're envious, you're green with envy. You might be
yeah.
purple with rage. And we all agree on those colors in our language.
Yeah.
So that's what I think points to synesthesia being more widespread. Oh,
Yeah. James says, "Do you believe this is an inherited ability?"
it absolutely is. They're finding out more about the genes. It runs in families.
Mhm. That makes sense. That really does. Wow. Ah. It's so nice to be able to talk to somebody else who has this
I
because
feel the
haven't met
same way.
anyone
I
else.
know. I know. Well, I'm
Uh,
so glad that we connected, and we'll keep the conversation going because no one should feel alone with this, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. And we're finally living in a world where you can be more open about these things. And I'm very
yeah.
grateful to some of the super creatives like Billy Joel who have
Mhm.
come out and talked about this to kind of normalize it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see if I can get Billy Joel on.
You should, you
Yeah.
should. He's very
Uh,
nice. I've interviewed
yeah.
him.
Have you really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
he
Did
talked
he
to me about his synesthesia.
okay. What would people find on your website if they visited your site?
Well, my current website, which is just my name, maureenseaberg.com, is about the current book, Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. And one more thing I would like to say about that book, Margie, is I was talking about the senses, as I told you, all this new sensory research. And I interviewed people who had super abilities as a super smeller or a super taster. There's a chapter about me and my eyes in there, and all sorts of X-men and X-women types, of the
Mhm.
senses.
Superpowers.
They have superpowers. And I wasn't expecting it. But as I got to ask them more and more questions, they all also had synesthesia. So my question
Hmm.
is, does synesthesia lay the groundwork for sensory abilities? There's
Yes, and
me, I have synesthesia, and then I have the eye thing.
yeah.
There's super smellers who smell like a bloodhound, and they also have synesthesia. So, Dr. V.S. Ramachandran and Dr. David Brang have a paper that suggests that synesthesia enhances sensory processing. So that might be what's going on there. Like if you have
Yes.
an enhanced sensory system, one of those other senses might pop out, like acute hearing or acute sense of smell. There's
So a person that has, say, acute hearing, uh, what would they hear above and beyond what a normal person would?
so those folks are called golden ears. And in the book, I interview a Grammy nominated musician named Steve Roach about his golden ears. And it's actually very difficult to be someone with super hearing because you can never turn it off, not even when you sleep. And they are so sensitive to many tones that they don't get to relax. They can maybe put earbuds in or something. But in general, it's very hard for that sense to be turned up that high all the time.
So I think it would be difficult for that person to listen to loud music.
hmm Because they hear better than we do.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
seem to be a lot of trade-offs with the senses. So, super tasters told me there are some foods that they absolutely cannot eat because even if it's pleasant to normal people, everyday people, it's unpleasant to them because they taste it stronger. And one woman gave an example of beets. Now, beets are pretty benign as far as I'm concerned. They
Mhm.
taste fine, but to her they taste awful because she's tasting it stronger.
Oh gosh, that would limit your intake of food.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
have to be
Some of
very
these
picky.
people, yeah, some of these people really struggle. So there was a super smeller in the book, Joy Milne. She's a fascinating lady. She is famous for being able to smell Parkinson's disease. And
Oh,
they've tested her to see what the molecules are on human skin that she's smelling that translate to the Parkinson's. And they actually isolated all the biomarkers. And now there's a swab test for Parkinson's that can identify it 10 years earlier than before, just because this
wow.
woman could smell it. So I was Zooming with her and I said, "Are you working on anything else now, Joy?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, I can smell COVID." And I said, "What does it smell like?" And she said, "Apple cider plus infection."
Oh my
So
gosh.
they're working on swab testing for that too. And she's also working on cancer and tuberculosis.
That's incredible.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah,
So
that
like
her
one
ability could
person,
lead
yeah,
to
one
diagnosis.
person.
Mhm.
And it was because she smelled it first on her husband. Her husband got sick with Parkinson's, and she says there's a distinct musk. And then she started smelling it on other people. And then she talked
Mhm.
to scientists and wanted to help.
Did she have this ability as a child, or did she develop it
Yes.
later?
No, she did, but it became more acute. And she was working as a nurse, so she was surrounded by sickness more, and she became more sensitive to what diseases might smell like.
We've got a question. Do super hearers understand what birds are saying beyond danger vocalizations?
That's a great question. And I'm a birder myself, so I'd love to know the answer, but I can't say that I do know the answer. Of course, there are different vocalizations with birds. You're
Uh-huh.
absolutely right. There
Uh-huh.
could be a mating call or a warning call or lots of different intent. But I think a superhero would be the best person to look into that to hear the subtleties.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to ask a super hearer if they've ever tried to listen to animals to see if they can, I don't know, determine the idea of what they're
What
saying to
they're
each
trying
other.
to, yeah,
Yeah, what their
that's a great
communication
idea,
is.
great application for it.
Yeah, and that also makes me think about Sasquatch calls and
Oh,
things like that.
yeah,
Yeah, get some.
yeah.
Well, this sounds like cutting edge science here,
Yes,
and
it's all
yeah,
very new. It's all just happening in the last 10 years.
yeah, and thank you so much for being
Oh,
out there and interviewing people and being the one to get this started.
oh,
Um,
thank you.
and
I mean, look
it's
what a pioneer I'm talking to. So, right back at
well,
you.
well, this is just absolutely fascinating, and I'm so glad to know you.
You
And I'm
too.
sure that we will be in touch in the near future.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah,
And I'm grateful to your audience. Thank you for such good questions and for tuning in.
yeah. We have a good audience here. They they're on top of things.
Yeah,
So,
really good
and
questions.
here we have people with synesthesia right here in the chat. So,
See, that's
yeah, the 4%,
the
everybody.
4% are uniting tonight.
Yes, 4% are here tonight, and will be watching this in the future as well. How can people get your books?
Oh, on Amazon or wherever books are sold. They're pretty widely available.
Okay, so we have these two. And do you have any projects for the near future coming up?
Yes. Well, Struck by Genius has been optioned again for film. So I'm
Hmm.
working with those producers and hoping it finally makes it to the screen. It's been optioned almost every year since it came
Okay.
out. So,
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and tell you I remote viewed it and it's going to go. This is a go.
ah,
So I hope I'm right.
I hope you are too. Thank you
I
so
see it
much.
happening. So I think that's going to be a blockbuster. That's going to be great.
I hope so. And you know what the takeaway is from that, Margie? I took the gentleman who got hit in the head to Rain Man's doctor to examine him because he was the world's leading expert in savants. And when I was leaving the office after he confirmed he's a savant, he grabbed me by the arm so he wouldn't let me leave. And not in a bad way, but like, come here, I have to tell you something. He
Mm.
said, you need to remember one thing as you're writing this book. Nothing was added nor created when Jason Paget was injured. Rather, genetic memory, factory installed software was released. and it's in all of us.
Oh.
So these hidden abilities were released in him. And what are ours? What are all of ours?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Well, that is a good note to end on, and it's something to ponder. Thank you so much, Maureen, for being with us this evening, and thanks everybody in the chat for joining me. We will be back again next week, next Friday night, 6 p.m. Central Time. This is Margie K. See you next week.